to make ourselves a Tekka sign from Chair Company on HBO. If you're interested in buying these, I sell them on my Etsy page. So we're going to go ahead and make one right now. We're going to be using our 1/8 inch end mill bit. We're also going to be using a 1/16 inch and a 1mm. So we have our file loaded on our computer for the first step. I think we have about 5 or 6 files to do. And we're using GSender with a Prover XL 4030 with a 6060 extension kit. So I have my 1/8 inch end mill bit calibrated on the Z axis and the Y and the X. So let's get cutting. Set up the camera. Oops. Get the camera ready to go. We'll turn on our machine and we'll start the file. Again, if you like this, like and subscribe. The channel grow. Now let's get working. Okay, so that is our 1/8 inch end mill bit. What we're going to do now is go with a 16th inch bit to get the text on the sign. So obviously the 1/8 inch is too big for this. So we'll go ahead, get the 16th inch bit on there, get it calibrated, and then we'll start working on that. So let me raise up the machine here. I'm going to send it back just a little bit. Okay, so I got my tools here, so let's pop this guy out. And here is our 1/8 inch end mill bit. Basically just looks like a drill bit, but it's for CNC cutting. So let's put that to the side. And we're gonna go ahead and take out our 16th inch end mill bit. So it's basically just like the 1/8 inch, but a little smaller. So we're going to go ahead and put that into the machine. So I'm keeping my XY exactly the same, but since I put a new bit in, I'm going to have to calibrate the Z-axis so it knows exactly how high that bit is off the material. So we'll get it snug in there, and then we'll tighten it down with the open-ended wrenches so it's tightened in there. So now what we got to do is calibrate it. We're going to take our Z-probe, which is basically an alligator clip and a metal plate. We're going to attach this end to the bit and this end on our material. And what it's going to do is slowly lower that bit to where it touches the plate and knows exactly how high that plate is, so it can tell how high off our material this new bit is. So let's get it calibrated. I'll drop it down. Try to get a little better lighting on there so you can see it's not touching the plate. And what we're going to do is load the probe, and to make sure it knows it's there, I'm going to touch it first by hand. So now it knows the plate's there. We're connected. So we're going to go ahead and watch it. It's going to slowly raise down in 1 second. Touches the plate, and then it's going to go down even slower, just as a final calibration pass. Boom, touched it. So now we have our 16th inch end mill bit calibrated. And we're going to go over here to our computer, which is running all our files. So let's go ahead and load in our 16th inch file. So basically it shows you everything on there, how many layers it's going to do, and what it's going to look like. So we have our file loaded. Let's go back here to the machine. And what we're going to do is turn it on and start the file. Again, if you like this content, like and subscribe. If you're interested in buying these signs, I make them and sell them on Etsy. I have that. I have a Valley Forge if you like the show tires. All the signs I make have a little clip there, or a little, thing to hold it to the wall. And I also got some Pokemon stuff I've been making here for the holidays. Different kinds of ones. So again, I'll shut up here and you can watch the cut. But let's get started. Like and subscribe. Let's start the router. we are done with our 16-inch end mill bit. So we're going to go ahead and swap that out for our 1 millimeter bit. So you can see that the 16-inch got a lot more than the 1/8 inch, but there's still a little bit of characters there that it just needs to get a little more detail out of. So we'll go ahead and go to the smaller bit. Now, I haven't tried this smaller bit with these settings I'm using, so I'm pretty sure they'll work, but there is a chance that maybe I get a little too aggressive, it breaks a bit. If it happens, that sucks, but I could always fix the file and go back to it. But so we'll go ahead and get the 1 millimeter bit put in there for the 1/16, get it calibrated, and get the rest cut up. And I mentioned in the chat, I made a Legend of Zelda shield for my son for the Renaissance Fair. So you can see this thing is 3D basically cut using the CNC router, and I ended up painting it, you know, the 3-4 colors on there, and I ended up hot gluing a handle on the back for it. So yeah, it's something cool I made for my son to go to the Renaissance Fair as a Legend of Zelda Hylian shield. So that's just a little plug of the things that this thing can do. So let's go ahead and get that new bit in there. So let's lift it up, put it out just a little bit, give myself some room, take my open-ended wrenches to remove it. And then this is our 1/16 end mill bit. Tough to focus in, but that's kind of tiny, but we're going to go something a little smaller right now. Go towards our 1 millimeter end mill bit. This thing's mainly meant for detail. And like I said, I think I'll be good with the file I created for it. I don't think it's too aggressive. Again, we'll find out. So let's put that in there. Hand tighten it, and then let's get our open-ended wrenches. And we'll get it tightened with that. Okay, so that's tight in there. So now what I'll have to do, like I did for the last bit, is I'll have to calibrate it. So we'll keep the X and the Y the same, but our Z's changed because we moved the bit up and down. So we have our plate right here with the alligator clip that I'll attach to the bit itself. And I'll zoom in so you can see this again if you're interested. So what we're going to do is set up our probe. So to recognize it, we'll just touch it like this so it knows it's there. And we're going to start it. It's going to slowly go down and touch that plate to know exactly how high off the material we are. You can see it's dropping down, and it's going to go back for a second pass. And then it touched the plate. So my machine knows exactly how thick this plate is here. So when it touches that, it knows exactly how high off the surface it is. So now we have our new bit zeroed out on X, Y, and a Z. We're going to go over here and load in our last file. Zoom it out just a little bit. So let's load our 1 millimeter file in there. 1 millimeter. And it's going to get a lot of depth in there to get the edges from that 1/16, and even the main Tekka, it's going to go around the exterior to get a little bit more detail that the 1/8 couldn't get. Actually, it's kind of like a final pass to get any sort of material. So we have our file loaded. We have our new bit in there. Let me set up the camera. And again, I'm pretty sure this one will be good. Worst case is what you're going to see is the bit breaking, and this is kind of what it looks like for another project I did. The bit just snaps in half. It sucks, but you learn from it. You make your mistake or fix your mistakes, which I think I did with this one. Broke it on something different, but let's go ahead and start it. Again, like and subscribe if you're enjoying this content. Love doing this stuff. Check my Etsy page if you're interested in buying signs. Now let's get started. Okay, we are done. Let's back this up. You have a good one there, Mental Raccoon Glass. Thanks for subbing. I'll see you in the next one. But let's back this up so we can see how it looks. Let's go. So there she is. So let's take it off. So what I do is I secure it to the table with painter's tape and CA glue. It basically acts as double-sided tape that holds it to the table. I could also use these T-tracks to hold it down, but since I'm doing a cutout, I want to make sure everything's held together. So I use this painter's tape. Excuse me, I got something caught in my throat. Ugh. So yeah, cut it out. And then what I'm going to do is, oh, that thing's stuck on there good right now. Use a good old-fashioned screwdriver. There it goes. There's the painter's tape, so I'm going to take that off. What I'll do for these corners, because they're still pretty sharp, is I'm going to take my palm router with a 1/8 inch round over bit and just basically smooth out the sides, do a little bit of light sanding, fix this up. Also take off the tape, excuse me, the tape off the back and stain it, as well as the sides. And then basically it's going to look like this. This one doesn't have the little clasp on there, but what I'm going to do is throw like my Valley Forge sign here. Throw that on there so you can hang it up on the wall. You know, whatever you want to do with it. Again, if you're looking for signs, I make these, sell them on Etsy. Looking for different things that people are interested in. I'm open to ideas. If you want to message me on Etsy or YouTube, whatever. You know, I basically try to stay busy making stuff like this. Charizard, we got a Pikachu. If you're a fan of The Office, Kevin from The Office, Gengar, War Turtle, and I also made my son a Legend of Zelda shield for the Renaissance Fair. Not the greatest painter, but he liked it, and it actually turned out pretty good. So yeah, thanks again for watching this stream. I'm hungry. I could use a beer, but I really appreciate you taking your time out of your Friday nights, watching me do this. I really like doing this. It's one of those things where I started getting into woodworking about 5-6 years ago, and this was the next logical step, was to get into CNC woodworking. So I made my own enclosure here to do stuff, to hopefully not wake up the family while I'm doing it. They're nice enough to let me, keep the doors open and, do this stuff live. But again, I appreciate everybody watching. Like and subscribe really helps my channel grow. And if you're looking for stuff to buy, Etsy page, or find me on YouTube, something like that. And hey, have a great night. Enjoy it. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.